The morning the trouble began in SeaHarbor didn't look like trouble at all. It came wrapped in soft fog, the kind that drifted lazily across Harbor Haven's boardwalk and settled over the rooftops like a half-forgotten memory. The tide was low, the gulls were quiet, and the familiar scent of salt and warm driftwood carried gently through the air. For most people, it would have felt like any other day in a quiet coastal town. But for Evie Whitmore, it was the kind of morning that made her pay attention. She wasn't suspicious by nature, just observant, the way a woman becomes after 40 years working as a mail carrier walking the same streets, delivering letters filled with secrets people never imagine anyone else will see. Retirement had softened her schedule, but not her instincts, and the part-time event assistant job she'd taken at the Harbor Haven Hotel had only sharpened them. She was on her way to the hotel that morning, cutting across the courtyard where the ornamental grasses swayed in the breeze, when she noticed something unusual. A bellhop, new and still learning the rhythm of the place, was standing near the hotel's side entrance, glancing nervously between a luggage cart and the staircase leading to the ground floor suites. He wasn't panicked, but he looked uncertain, the way someone looks when they can't decide whether something is worth mentioning. Evie didn't stop to ask. She simply clocked the expression the way she used to clock a mismatched handwriting sample on an envelope. She kept walking, but the details settled quietly in the back of her mind, waiting. Inside, the hotel lobby was waking up slowly. The front desk attendants arranged brochures no one ever took. The espresso machine hissed its morning greeting, and a few early risers shuffled across the lobby floor with the dazed determination of people still deciding whether they were awake. Evie checked the day's event schedule. Nothing demanding, just small tasks to help the head planner prepare for a weekend wedding. It should have been an easy day. But as she made her way past the registration counter, she caught a faint tension in the air. Barely perceptible, but there. The clerk on duty was reviewing the guest list with unusual focus. She was a calm woman by nature, someone who didn't get rattled easily. But that morning her eyes kept returning to a single name on her screen. When Evie walked by, the clerk mentioned, almost casually, but not quite, that one of the hotel's long-term guests hadn't come down for breakfast, and housekeeping said they hadn't seen him leave the room either. She assured Evie it was probably nothing. Guests slept in, lost track of time, wandered off to the beach without telling anyone. But the clerk seemed to be trying to convince herself more than anyone else. She said the housekeeper had noticed something odd when she checked the hallway earlier. A luggage strap on the guest's suitcase looked different, as if someone had tugged it or moved it slightly, but she couldn't recall whether it had always been that way. It was the kind of detail most people would forget immediately. Evie didn't. She continued with her tasks, but her attention kept drifting back to the sense of quiet disarray surrounding Suite 103. The hotel wasn't the sort of place where people vanished. It was comfortable, predictable. Even its quirks were predictable. The ever-squeaking elevator, the lobby chair that leaned just a little too far to the left, the faint draft near the gift shop doorway that no one could ever explain. But this was something else. Late morning rolled in, and the fog outside began to lift, revealing the glimmering ocean and the soft stretch of the SeaHarbor pier. Guests wandered in and out, their conversations blending with the hum of the hotel air conditioning. A couple from out of town mentioned to Evie that they could have sworn they saw someone lingering outside the missing guest's room earlier, but they couldn't be sure. They said the person moved too quickly around the corner for them to get a clear look. Maybe a staff member, they thought. Or maybe not. Evie noted it quietly. It wasn't until she passed the side hallway again that she noticed the bellhop from earlier speaking with the hotel's maintenance man. The bellhop seemed embarrassed, telling him he might have heard something in the early dawn hours. What sounded like footsteps on the back stairwell, followed by the faint squeak of a door shutting. He wasn't certain of the time, and he wasn't certain of the direction, but he looked bothered by it. The maintenance man assured him it was probably one of the overnight staff making rounds. But the bellhop didn't fully agree. Evie could see it in his shoulders. By early afternoon, the atmosphere had shifted in a way that only someone like Evie would pick up on. Guests were whispering near the coffee station. A couple avoided the hallway entirely. The clerk spoke with the housekeeper again, and both kept glancing toward the stairs leading to the suites. Nothing overt had happened, no commotion, no raised voices. But the collective unease was growing in a slow, steady ripple beneath the hotel's polished surface. Evie decided to walk past Suite 103 herself. Not to snoop, just to pass by on her way to retrieve a box of linens from the storage closet down the hall. The door to the suite was closed, locked, perfectly ordinary. But something felt off. The room number plaque sat slightly crooked, just enough that most people wouldn't notice. And there was a faint, uneven scuff on the carpet, something dragged or shifted recently. She didn't linger. She simply stored the detail away and returned to her tasks. By mid-afternoon, the head planner asked Evie to bring a message to the hotel manager. As Evie made her way through the lobby, she overheard a guest telling the concierge that they had noticed the missing man sitting alone on a bench the previous evening, staring out toward the water with a distracted expression. The guest couldn't remember whether he'd spoken to anyone that night, only that he'd seemed somewhere far away, as she put it. Another guest mentioned seeing him carrying a small envelope at one point, though he wasn't sure whether it mattered. He remembered only because the man kept tucking it into his jacket pocket, as if he didn't want it seen. Evie didn't know what to make of any of it. Not yet, but the mosaic of small, quiet details was starting to arrange itself in her mind. When she finally reached the back office, the manager wasn't there. Only the assistant manager was present, reviewing paperwork with a furrowed brow. She didn't say much to Evie, but she did remark that the hotel manager had stepped away to handle a small issue at one of the suites. She didn't specify which suite. She didn't have to. Evie returned to the lobby as the sun dipped lower, casting long streaks of gold across the floor. A soft breeze slipped in as the front doors opened for a departing guest. The hotel felt different now, quieter, heavier. Not ominous, just braced for something. Near the corridor to the suites, the housekeeper stood with folded towels, hesitating before walking down the hall. She told Evie she didn't want to disturb anyone, but she also didn't want to keep delaying her rounds. She admitted that, in all her years working there, she'd never seen a guest go an entire day without leaving their room at least once. She said it softly, almost as if she didn't want the air to hear it. Evie offered a reassuring nod, though she wasn't sure reassurance was appropriate anymore. The hotel lights flickered on as evening approached, bathing the lobby in soft amber tones. Guests settled in for drinks in the lounge, unaware, or perhaps politely ignoring, the subtle tension threading its way through the building. And then came the moment that shifted everything from quiet concern to quiet certainty. A second housekeeper, who had been restocking the supply cart near the back stairwell, told the front desk she'd noticed the guest's door slightly ajar earlier in the day. Just a crack, before it was later fully shut again. She wasn't sure how long it had been that way. She wasn't sure anyone had gone in or out. She said she hadn't looked inside, of course, but something about the door unsettled her. Evie felt the pieces click together, not into a solution, but into a shape. A shape of something that wasn't right. She didn't rush or panic. She simply stood still, letting the hotel's familiar smells, Old carpet, polished wood, distant coffee. Anchor her as the weight of possibility settled in. By the time the sun vanished behind the harbor, the quiet question hanging in the air had grown too large to ignore. Where was the missing guest? And why did it feel like the hotel itself was trying to whisper clues through its hallways?